Hi everyone, I'm Shellie from SARIC. Welcome back to our webinar series with Shellie on how to manage your mental and emotional well-being and help your client do the same. Last week's series has created a lot of great conversation and questions. So thank you for those who have been with us since the beginning, and welcome to those who are joining us live for the first time today. Today's webinar is a bit different, as will be a 30-minute follow-up conversation with Shellie, where we'll address as many of your questions as we can, including some that we haven't had a chance to answer during last week's Q&A. Of course, you can continue asking your question to Shellie today by using the question box you see on your screen. If during today's webinar you have any technical issues, please try refreshing your page or try using the Google Chrome browser if you experience a frozen screen. However, if you wish to watch this webinar again, be reassured that we will also send you the recording of today's webinar later today. A reminder also that at the end of today's webinar, you will have a pop-up windows with a short survey. We want to thank you in advance for taking the time to let us know what your learning needs are right now and how we can best support you. We understand that not all of you got the pop-up windows appear on your screen at the end of last week's webinar, so we hope that the issue will be solved for today. But if you still don't receive the survey pop-up windows at the end of today's webinar, please make sure to click on the survey link that we will send out to you in the follow-up email later today. And thank you in advance for your feedback. But now let's not wait any longer to start the conversation with Shellie. So over to you, Shellie.
Hi, Serial. Thank you, everybody, for coming back and joining me again today. It has only been a week since the last webinar we did last week. However, it feels way longer than that. I don't know if that's just the case for me or for all of you, but it feels like it's been much longer since I've been connecting. So thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining me. If you haven't already seen the 3 webinars from last week, parts 1, 2, and 3, then I definitely encourage you to go back and watch or rewatch and definitely let me know what you think. I also just want to say that I've been going through a lot of your questions. Thank you so much to everybody who submitted questions, shared your feedback. I've been having some really amazing conversations with many of you, so I really, really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your comments and your feedback with me. I know for many of you, you're wondering how to do more of this with your clients. And it's an interesting question because I can only give you so much. I can only train you so much in a webinar. It's really, the purpose of this is really to open the door, to start some new conversations, to give you some new tools, some new resources, and to further guide your own learning and development. For those of you who are interested in being trained further, those options are here. So I just want you to know that if you want to know more, if you want to get trained further in these tools and these resources that I use with clients and that I would love to see more people using with their clients as well, then definitely reach out and let me know and we can talk about how to do that. And for now, I'm going to do my best to dive in and answer as many questions as I can. I have pulled out from the questions that were submitted the most relevant ones that will apply to what I think is the most amount of people, the most sort of not generic, but questions that everybody will hopefully be able to relate to. So I'm going to dive into those, and if you have more questions, please put them into the question box and I will do my best to get to as many of them as I can. Okay, so I'm going to start with Melissa, who said she doesn't really understand the concept of being. This is from the first webinar. So she said, I'm going to be me. Yes, I hope that you are. And that the workbook says to choose 3 intentions for being, and she doesn't understand what that means. So the reason I brought that up is because most of us are conditioned through our society, through our lives, through our education and our workplaces and our families to be doers. Right? And so it goes back to a Wayne Dyer quote around, we are human beings, not human doings. So when we set our intentions for the day, it's about looking at who you're going to be that day. Yes, you're going to be you. Which qualities and traits are you going to focus on? Not necessarily what are you going to do, but who are you being? Are you being a calm, patient individual? Are you being a loving and compassionate friend or support to somebody? Are you being productive and focused in your day? So sometimes the who part of that trips people up a little bit. So if you find that hard to wrap your hands around, then think about, what are you being? It doesn't work for me as well, because you're not a what, you're a who. But some people find it a little bit easier to navigate that way. All right. Amelia asks, what are some solid ways of dealing with others around us who are in denial, who actively deny, minimize, question, or invalidate our processes? Yeah, so this comes up for me regularly because of the nature of the work I'm doing. When clients come to me, they aren't necessarily on the same page, and I have no expectation for them to be on the same page as me, because they haven't gone through the level of training and development and work that I've gone through to get to where I am. So it requires a lot of explaining and entering the client's model of the world. And this is a big piece that we cover in trainings, but with your client's model of the world, it's understanding that they have their own perspective and their own lens that they look out and see the world through. And when you can enter that, it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to agree with how they see the world and you have to see it the same way, but it means that you can put yourself into their shoes and look out at the world through their lens and accept their model of the world. And when you do that, you can sort of understand, this is how this person sees the situation. This is how this person is seeing this reality. And from there, then you can navigate how to expand their model of the world, which is what we want our work to do. We want them to expand their possibilities, expand the opportunities that they see for themselves, expand the way they view themselves, so that they're willing to see themselves and their opportunities and possibilities from a new light. In order to do that, we have to start by entering their model of the world. So start there, put yourself into their shoes, view the world through their lens first. And in order to do that, you have to ask a lot of questions. Don't assume, right? We make no assumptions. You want to instead ask them questions so that they can tell you what their model of the world looks like. And so ask questions about, how would you describe your situation right now? And pay attention to the language that they use so you can use that language back to them. And then from there, you can explain, are you willing to try some new things that maybe you haven't tried before, or maybe you haven't thought would be relevant, but are you willing to try them, given the chance that they might completely transform your reality? That being said, if they say no, if they, they're very set on, this is the way I do things, and I'm not, I don't want anybody expanding that for me, you can only help people who are willing to be helped, right? A client is only a client when they ask and when they commit. And so that means framing things to them and asking them for their permission. And if they don't want to go there, that's their call, right? And then maybe you can't help them, but that's up to them. And if they're not willing to do that, if they're not willing to go with you on the journey, you can only help people who are willing to be helped, unfortunately. All right. Aisha says, how to be optimistic about the situation when you know it'll create a wrong impression. Now, considering COVID-19, we know it can turn severe and we're hoping for the best, but won't it be wrong to pretend as though nothing is happening, strategically speaking? Okay, so to me, yes, pretending that nothing's going on would be not a good approach. It would be really hard to create relationships with people and have people be able to relate to you if you're out there just, pretending life is normal and we're going on as we normally would. So that's not what I'm recommending at all. That being said, I don't want you to get pulled into the wormholes of negativity and chaos and crisis, right? So we can acknowledge everything that's going on in the world right now. We can acknowledge the situation for what it is, and also stay focused on the positive outcome that we want. Yeah, so, you know, don't just go about pretending that nothing's happening, but it doesn't mean that you have to buy into all of the hype and the fear-based, the fear-mongering and the fear-based thinking. Okay, Julia asks, if you have a new dream of where you want to go, but you have responsibilities both financially and for others, what can you do? Great question. So everything we do, everything that we address in NLP, we always base on ecology. Ecology meaning, is it good for me? Is it good for society? Is it good for my community? And is it good for the planet? Right? So if you've got a big dream and you want to go for that dream, but going for that dream may be putting your family at risk, then it's not ecological, right? Or it might be putting you at risk, then it's not ecological. It's not good for society, then it's not ecological. So you have to evaluate how you're going about your dream to make sure that it is ecological for you, your family, community, society, and the planet. This is where we got to get creative, right? And we need to be resourceful, because sometimes you have to change up how you're going to go after your dream so that you can do it in an ecological way. And this is where, you know, if people are creating a business, maybe it's a side business at first while you get everything figured out and you're ironing out the kinks and you're keeping your regular job so that you have a steady paycheck, because maybe that's what you and your family need, right? So we have to be ecological in our decision making to make sure that you are still holding up your responsibilities while going after your dream. What we really want to avoid is any either or thinking, right? Any situations that put you into an either or mindset, that's a sign that you're limited in your thinking. So what I mean by that is, if you're saying, well, I can follow my dream, or I can meet my responsibilities both financially and for my family, right? I can't do both. I have to pick one or the other. If you've got that sort of either or perspective running, it's completely normal. However, let that be a sign for you to say, whoa, okay, let's expand this and open it up a bit and see what possibilities in the middle am I missing right now, where I can follow my dream and meet my responsibilities in harmony. That's what we're looking for. Okay. Jane says, I'm a job developer, I'm still working, but I'm struggling to do my job and starting to feel like a bit of a failure. What can I do to stay positive during this time? Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. I completely appreciate your level of vulnerability to share where you're at emotionally right now. Excuse me. So what I would say is, take a look at your expectations you're putting on yourself right now. I think for any of us who are holding up the same level of standards and expectations and putting that on ourselves now as we would normally do in our regular, you know, pre-COVID life, if you haven't reevaluated your expectations, I strongly encourage you to do that now. Because if you're saying that, you know, you're working, so now you've got your work expectations, your day-to-day life, you're living and working from home, and you're also managing your life and the people around you and those who you're closest to through a pandemic, right? So if you're starting to feel like you're failing, take a look at what are your top priorities right now, and what are your expectations on yourself for those priorities? Because it may be, and I don't know without digging into this deeper with you, but my initial instinct went to, it may be that your expectations and the standards you're putting on yourself are too high to handle right now. And if that means giving yourself a break, putting yourself first, really paying attention and nurturing your emotions so that you are in a really good place to be able to support and help other people, then I strongly encourage you to do that first. Okay. All right, so Carolyn says, what do you do for a client that is stuck in their thoughts and they are in fight or flight all the time? They ask questions for help, but when you start to talk about it, they run. Yeah, good question, Carolyn. So fight or flight is an amygdala response, right? So if you remember, the amygdala is this old part of our reptilian brain at the very back of our head, at the top of the brainstem. And that amygdala is responsible for fight or flight for the purpose of survival, right? And so from an evolutionary perspective, long time ago, it served a very important purpose for keeping us alive so that we would instinctively know when we need to fight off a predator or we need to run away, we need to hide, those kinds of things, right? Now, there are no saber-toothed tigers chasing us today. However, that amygdala still serves an important purpose of encouraging you to either run away and hide or to fight off whatever's coming at you for the purpose of your survival. And if there's no saber-toothed tiger chasing you, then the amygdala looks for what other threats are out there. What do I need to be on guard of? What do I need to be hiding from? What do I need to be aware of? And it's always sort of like alert and looking for what's going on. Now, that's happening with me, with you, with your clients. Some of us are managing it better than others, but we also have to take a look at the fact that this is happening unconsciously, right? So if you've got a client who's coming to you saying, I want help with this, but then as soon as you really start digging in, they run away or they fight you, so either fight or flight, that's when you know it's an unconscious response, right? So their conscious mind is coming to you saying, please help me, but their unconscious mind is saying, nuh-uh, not happening. I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to explore the unknown. That's dangerous. I'm not safe. I don't like this. Time to get out of here, right? So it's about recognizing that they're not doing it on purpose. They're not doing it consciously. They are doing what they're programmed to do out of an instinct of protection, safety, survival, security, some of those base level needs and priorities. So the biggest thing that you can do with your clients is pre-frame this ahead of time, right? Let them know ahead of time. We're going to dive into some things that are going to get uncomfortable. And that's okay, because being uncomfortable means you're growing. You can either have growth or you can have comfort, but you can't have both at the same time. So if you want to grow, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable sometimes. It's okay, because I'm here to support you and guide you through it, and know that you're not alone, right? But the fact that you're going to be uncomfortable might mean that there's going to be times where you either are strongly disagreeing with what I'm saying, you want to fight me on it, you want to do things your own way, or you just want to back out, get out of here, say no thanks, and run, right? Both of those are instinctual survival responses. And while that's totally normal and it's okay, it's not in your best interest. So what you're doing when you're explaining all of this to your clients is letting them know ahead of time that this might happen and it's okay, but they need to stay committed to the process, right? And the fact that they know this up front, you're pre-framing it for them so that if it were to come up, they can go, oh, okay, yeah, he or she reminded me that this might happen. Now it's happening. Okay, time to reach out for help, right? So tell them what to expect and tell them what to do when it happens. Tell them to call you, tell them to email you, or whatever your contact mode is, so that you can be there and guide them through it instead of them completely taking themselves out. Okay. Such a great question. Which also leads me into another question that I'm going to find here from Srividya. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. How do we help clients who are not willing to move from situation C to situation D? So this is referring back to the growth model. And remember, situation C is when people are sort of at rock bottom, they're at their worst, they're in crisis. And D is the new normal that you want to get to. And so what to do when some people aren't willing to go from C to D. Okay? And all of your clients all of your questions, sorry, are tying in so well together, because this goes back also to, you can only help people who are willing to be helped. Pre-framing ahead of time what you're working towards, and then also taking a look at what we call secondary gain. Now, secondary gain, for those of you who aren't familiar with this term, happens when the gain of your problem outweighs the pain of your problem. Let me say that again. Secondary gain happens when the gain of your problem outweighs the pain of your problem. Now, problems always have pain associated with them, right? There's a discomfort, there's some level of, I don't like this isn't working for me. It's got some level of pain attached to it. However, remember, problems are always showing up for a positive purpose. The highest intention is always positive. Now, we can't always see that. It doesn't always feel positive. There can be a lot of negative meaning wrapped up in it too. But when we know that the highest intention is always positive, it means that we're meant to gain something from our problem. We're meant to learn something. We're meant to grow from it. Okay? So secondary gain means whatever the person's gaining from having this problem is bigger than the pain, so they actually want to hold on to their problem. Again, this happens totally unconsciously, right? So let's say, for example, that a client has I'm going to pull on an actual example of a client that I've worked with. So mom is suffering with depression, right? And mom has a 7-year-old daughter who knows that when mom's not feeling well and mom's not doing well, she's up in her room alone. So 7-year-old daughter starts realizing that the more that she acts out, the more bad behavior she exhibits, the more she gets mom's attention, right? So when we look at this 7-year-old girl, she's got a behavior and a problem of misbehaving, of having total meltdowns, of completely losing control over her emotions. But what's the gain that she gets from that problem? Oh, she gets mom's attention. And she gets mom's love, because the rest of the time, mom is not doing so well and just locked up in her room, right? So that 7-year-old's behavior has secondary gain attached to it. So if we were to work with this kid and try to figure out, what's going on and how do we help her, until we address that secondary gain, she's not going to want to let go of the problem, right? She's gaining something from it. So recognizing that when clients have a hard time letting go of a problem, when they're doing all the right things, they're taking all the right steps, they are, they're showing up, they're saying they want it, but there's something else going on. This is when you need to explore secondary gain and help them to understand what they're gaining from this problem. All right. I want to address the anxiety release model that we talked about in webinar 2, because I had a number of questions from that. So Rebecca says, what would be your suggestion for playing a mental success film with a positive outcome, particularly when they know that there's certainty of a negative outcome? This is a fantastic question. Thank you, Rebecca. She says, for example, you know that there's certainty that someone you love will not be able to fight off this virus if they were to get it, right? So how do you create that mental success film in your mind when you know, if this person were to get sick, they're not going to be able to fight it off? Well, let's back that up a layer and say the success film then is that they stay healthy. They don't even get to the point where they need to fight off the virus, right? The success film is looking at creating an outcome where this whole thing doesn't touch them, where they stay home, where they stay healthy, and where they could perhaps even use this time for a positive opportunity. Okay. Sanam says, Success film is also in the future. So it's still not a reality in the present. How can I accept that? Cool. Okay. So yes, your success film is in the future. Same way that any disaster films you're running about the future are also not here and now. So they haven't happened yet. They're out in the future, right? So you're not necessarily looking to accept it. You're recognizing that if it's something that you could make up, if it is a reality that you can imagine, then it's a possibility for you. And if it's a possibility for you in the future, you can bring that into reality in the now. I know some of the stuff, everything that we're getting into here is taking a look at more the quantum physics side of NLP, which is super, super fun for me to geek out over. But I can also totally appreciate that this is like a crash course and might be a lot. So at this point, I would say if you are creating your success film on your towards wall, you're creating that success film of what you want your own outcome to be, and you're guiding your clients to do the same, then you're recognizing that that is a possible outcome. And if you're going to make something up in your mind, why not focus on the outcome that you actually want, right? Our focus creates our emotions determine our behaviors, and our behaviors create our results. So that focus that you've got, that vision and that outcome that you're focusing on is directly playing into the reality and the results that you're creating. You're going to get whatever it is that you're focusing on. So focus on what you want. Cool. All right. Okay, diving into pain to purpose. So I know I got quite a few questions about this, so I'm going to review it very quickly, and keeping in mind again that it's a crash course. The webinar was designed to give you new resources, give you new ideas. You may use some more than others, and if it is something you want to know more of, then you might want to consider going through a training option. Okay, so pain to purpose. The premise behind this whole concept is that we go through pain in our life for a reason. And I believe this, and I know many of you do too, because of the conversations we've been having. And if this isn't in your belief system, that's okay too. But take a look, listen to the frame and see how it can apply to your life. So if you were to imagine that all of the pain you've experienced over the course of your life, if you could put all of that into the palm of your hand, right? So you can look at the palm of your hand, and there's all the different times that you've struggled that have been really painful. And you can sort of see them all there in one place, right? And you can probably see patterns. You can probably see themes emerging around these different experiences. It might be themes around ultimately how it left you feeling, might be themes about what you believe about yourself or any limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. But if your pain is there, the idea with pain to purpose is that on the other side of that pain, you can flip your hand around, and on the back of your hand is your purpose that allows you to take that pain that you've experienced and transform it into a purpose that benefits other people, the world on some scale, right? So with this concept, I'm just going to take a look at some of the specific questions. Fang asks, since everyone's journey is unique, how could one use their unique experience to help others find their unique purpose? And that's exactly the point of this. The pain on the palm of the hand is different for everyone, right? And that's why our own purposes are unique too. And so what you're doing is essentially guiding your client to look at their pain and helping them connect the dots, looking backwards on what's the purpose that's coming out of this? What does this pain uniquely qualify you to do and to serve in the world, right? And that's completely different for everybody. So it definitely is a very personal journey looking at that. Okay, so let's move on. We've just got a couple more minutes. I'm going to try and get to as many as I can. Marnie asks, how do you help people to get out of victim energy? This is a big one. So if we were to break it down really simply, victimhood and victim energy is about not having control or power over my life. Someone or something else is controlling my reality. Someone else is creating this situation. Someone else or something else has put me in this place, right? So I'm a victim to those circumstances. The exact opposite of that is responsibility. And this is how you help empower people. And I do not use that word lightly. Empowerment to me is a word that gets thrown around too lightly and loosely. True empowerment means you are helping people to stand in their own power and operate from this place of their own personal power. And so how you can do that is moving them out of victimhood into empowerment. And how you do that is guiding them to take responsibility for their own situation, right? Now, people can get defensive here. And so it requires a lot of pre-framing and a lot of rapport. And when you do that, you're guiding your client to say, yeah, that's the situation that happened to me, right? And it's not discrediting that at all. It's guiding them through the situation, not avoiding it, not saying it's not important, but guiding them through it and saying, yeah, okay, that is what happened, right? And that's painful and that's awful. And we've got some work to do to move through it. And to be empowered, you've got to take responsibility, which means owning how you're responding to it. Right? You can look at responsibility as being a hyphenated word. Responsibility. It's your ability to respond to whatever's showing up in your world. And so if that situation happens that caused this person to feel like a victim, even though they may not be aware of it, but that's how they're operating, it's about moving them out of it by getting them to take responsibility for how are you going to respond to what's showing up here. How are you choosing to move through it instead of just having it happen to you? Okay. All right. Lisa. Lisa says, what do you suggest to do when you reach out to maintain connection with clients at this time and you get silent response? Lisa, thank you for being there for your clients. And I know this comes from a place of wanting to help and wanting to serve. And some people either aren't wanting it or aren't willing to accept help right now. And it makes me very sad for these people. I think you have to only focus on what you can control. And we have to take a look at only being able to help people who are willing to receive help. Right? And so I hope you continue to reach out when you can, and I hope that they will come around and allow themselves to receive help. However, focus on what you can control, and you can't control whether somebody responds or not. I think, do what you can in order to reach out maybe in a few different ways, but other than that, stay focused on what you can control. Pete says, I'm very interested in both NLP and hypnotherapy certifications as part of my personal and professional development. Do you have a program to mentor practitioners and or a path to follow? Yes, I definitely do. Pete, thank you for asking. Hold on, let's put this slide up. I think you guys can see that slide there. if you follow the needs assessment call link, you can book a call with me and we will talk about what specifically that you're looking for and what training recommendations I have. I am, yeah, there's a lot of different options. So it really depends on what you're looking for and what's going to be best for you, what you want to be able to do with it when you're done and where you're at now, and your budget and all that good stuff. So I do definitely have training recommendations and training options. So if you reach out to me there, we can talk about that. And for everybody else as well, if you connect with me on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, I do also have a community group called the Bright Futures Community. And that's a great place for us to stay in touch and you can be in the loop about training options and stuff that's coming up. Okay, back to questions. Almost done, 2 more. How do we still retain customers during COVID-19? People claim they can't spend the money, so that's difficult to manage. Yeah, it is difficult to manage, and I think it has to be addressed on an individual basis because it has to be ecological. If they're going to pay you, I don't want somebody to pay me, and then that means that they can't get groceries or they can't do, pay for things that are more important to their survival at this point, right? However, that being said, if somebody's paying me and I'm confident that they're going to work with me and they're going to be able to get back into making more money faster, then that is very ecological. So I think you need to assess the ecology of it with each person and then frame it based on the confidence you have of how you're going to be able to help them, to show them the investment and the return on investment of working with you, right? Okay, and then Jeffrey says in webinar 3, one of the best practices is meditation. Can you elaborate what this looks like, and is this similar to mindfulness? So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to, or not reach out to, but check out Emily Fletcher and Ziva meditation. Emily talks about the difference between mindfulness and meditation. They're not the same thing. They are practices that go hand in hand, but they're not the same thing. And I love her approach to it. She has a 3-day free trial of her program. So if you want to test it out, you can do that. Ziva, Z-I-V-A, Ziva meditation. And the difference is basically the brain waves that your mind gets into and the effects of those different brain waves. Meditation is much deeper than mindfulness. They're both important. They both serve different purposes. So if you can incorporate both into your day, that's super helpful. I also really like Joe Dispenza's meditation. And I just have the slide up on the screen here of additional resources that I mentioned throughout this webinar series. Joe Dispenza and Ziva meditation aren't on there, so hopefully you can make some note of that now. Okay, that was a lot. Thank you for being here, being with me, and I just also want to leave you with 2 things. If you haven't gotten the workbook yet, you can go to brightfutures.solutions/Thrive workbook. It will send you a link to download the workbook that went along with the webinar series, brightfutures.solutions/Thrive workbook. And also the needs assessment call link is there if you're interested in additional training, either for yourself individually or for your organization and team together. We can talk about how you can do that. So go ahead and book a call with me there.
Thank you, Shellie. Thank you, Shellie. And yes, no surprise that we got once again a terrific amount of great questions today. So thank you all for your continuous engagement. I think some of us may have had issues with your slide today, as I'm not sure that everyone were able to see them. But however, I want to reassure you all that the slide that Shellie shared today were the slide already on your last week presentation. So you didn't miss anything. And just I saw on your last slide that said that there is another webinar tomorrow. However, it's a mistake because unfortunately today was the last webinar of the series. But Shellie, you did an amazing job today answering to as many questions as you called, and thank you again for having been with us on this series and for having shared your knowledge and experience with us.
Thank you.
Now you may want to continue your learning journey with other webinars, and I'm happy to share some upcoming ones that the SARIC is offering in the next few weeks. So we are going to have a paid webinar series starting next week called the Career Development Professionals Guide to Effectively Serving Clients Living on the Autism Spectrum, presented by Sarah Taylor and in partnership with CASE, the Canadian Association for Supported Employment. And we are also offering a free series with 4 of the authors of the SARIC book, Career Theories and Model at Work, with John Wooden from Australia, Louis Cornoyer and Simon Vivier from Canada, and David Blasting from US. Please visit our website at saric.ca/webinars for more information or to register. And don't forget to subscribe to our webinar news to stay informed of new learning opportunities. Now, don't forget to take a few minutes to answer our survey and tell us what you thought of Shellie webinar series and about your future learning needs. But for now, let me now close by thanking you, Shellie, and thanking you, the participant, for being with us throughout the webinar series. We hope to see you at another learning opportunity. Have a good day.